The latest developments unfolding in the Middle East are being described as some of the most intense and complex in recent months, with reports indicating that 500 Gaza targets have been struck in 5 successive waves of aerial operations, signaling both the scale and precision of military planning involved. This surge in activity reflects not only the tactical capabilities of the Israeli Defense Forces, but also the wider geopolitical backdrop that continues to evolve, particularly with the upcoming Doha summit on the horizon, which could shape the next phase of regional diplomacy and negotiation. In analyzing the situation, one cannot ignore the sheer scale of logistics required to carry out such a large number of strikes in a coordinated sequence. Each wave designed to dismantle infrastructure, disrupt command and control systems, and deliver a message of deterrence to adversaries, while simultaneously raising questions about the humanitarian impact and the risk of escalation beyond the Gaza borders. The performance aspect of these strikes lies in their execution, with advanced surveillance systems, real-time intelligence, and precision-guided munitions being central to the operations. These elements allow for accuracy in targeting, reducing the possibility of collateral damage, though debates remain heated regarding the actual outcomes and civilian toll. From a technical standpoint, the integration of satellite tracking, drone surveillance, and command centers ensures that such waves are not only possible but also executed with speed and efficiency. For many viewers and analysts, this demonstrates a significant leap in the ability to sustain long campaigns without exhausting resources, showing how modern warfare has shifted from prolonged ground operations to highly calculated aerial strategies that rely heavily on advanced defense technology. Beyond the strikes themselves, the design of the broader campaign highlights how layered strategy plays a role in military and political messaging. 5 successive waves are not just about hitting physical targets, but about broadcasting resolve to multiple audiences, adversaries, domestic citizens, and the international community. The decision to group the operations into waves gives the impression of relentless pressure, a tactic intended to degrade enemy morale and signal to external players that Israel maintains dominance in both pace and scope. At the same time, this approach risks amplifying tensions and could provoke retaliation or further destabilize neighboring regions, making the timing of the Doha summit especially significant. The Doha summit looms large as a potential platform for negotiations, discussions, or at the very least, public positioning by stakeholders who seek to influence the trajectory of the conflict. Diplomats, policymakers, and observers will be closely watching to see whether the summit can de-escalate tensions or if it simply becomes another venue for hardened rhetoric. The juxtaposition of military escalation with diplomatic gatherings underscores the paradox of the region, where force and dialogue often run in parallel, and each action on the battlefield has an echo in the conference halls of international diplomacy. For those following the story, this combination of military force and political maneuvering forms the essence of what makes the current moment so critical and unpredictable. Another key feature worth reviewing is the communication strategy employed by both sides during these events. Information warfare in the form of press releases, televised updates, and social media campaigns plays a critical role in shaping perceptions. But Israel's framing of the strikes as precise and necessary for security aims to reinforce the legitimacy of the operations while adversarial. Groups in Gaza position themselves as defenders of their people, highlighting destruction and civilian suffering to gain international sympathy. The duality of these narratives reflects the modern battlefield, where the war of words can be as influential as the war of weapons. The performance of each side's messaging directly impacts international reactions. Humanitarian aid flows, and the level of pressure applied by global powers at gatherings like the Doha Summit. From a layman's perspective, the scale of 500 targets can be hard to fully grasp, but it becomes clearer when broken down into stages of intent. Initial waves may have aimed at command hubs and logistical nodes, the kind of targets that cripple an adversary's ability to coordinate. Subsequent waves may have focused on weapons storage, tunnel networks, or rocket launch sites, aiming to neutralize immediate threats. Later stages often include symbolic targets intended to demoralize or demonstrate technological superiority. The deliberate pacing of 5 waves suggests a carefully orchestrated campaign that balances immediate tactical needs with long-term strategic messaging. Critically, the design of such a campaign also underscores the reliance on regional alliances and intelligence sharing. Military operations of this scope rarely exist in a vacuum. Cooperation with allies, either overt or discreet, provides both technical support and political cover. The Doha Summit may further reveal the extent of behind-the-scenes coordination, particularly if regional powers use the platform to either challenge or endorse the strikes, shaping the narrative of whether they represent justified defense or disproportionate aggression. For viewers, understanding the layers of international involvement adds depth to the picture, reminding us that conflicts in the Middle East are rarely confined to 2 players alone. Unique elements of the current situation include not just the high number of targets struck, but also the timing, coming so close to a major diplomatic summit. This dual development forces governments and observers into a balancing act, where the military escalation may overshadow dialogue, or conversely, the promise of dialogue may influence the interpretation of the strikes. For audiences trying to make sense of the story, this interplay between force and diplomacy is a key selling point of coverage like TBN Israel's, which seeks to unpack the complexity of events in real time, while offering analysis that blends technical insight with accessible explanation. In reviewing the events, it is also important to consider the humanitarian dimension, as civilian populations often bear the brunt of sustained military operations. threat, power outages, infrastructure damage, medical supply shortages, and displacement are immediate consequences of such campaigns, and these realities shape both local resilience and international perceptions. Aid organizations, human rights groups, and journalists will continue to document these aspects, influencing the diplomatic tone of discussions in Doha and beyond. This tension between military objectives and humanitarian fallout remains one of the central dilemmas in analyzing modern conflict zones. The overall uniqueness of this development lies in its combination of scale, precision, and timing. 5 waves of strikes across 500 targets stand out not merely as a military achievement, but as a signal that the conflict is entering a more intense and unpredictable phase. Whether this escalation leads to deterrence, further escalation, or a renewed push for negotiation will depend heavily on the diplomatic currents emerging from the Doha summit. For viewers and analysts alike, this moment captures the complexity of Middle Eastern dynamics, where military action, political negotiation, and humanitarian concerns converge in ways that are deeply intertwined and globally significant.